I'm Rabbi Feinstein. This is Valley Beth Shalom live and online. It's Thursday morning, and it's my privilege to welcome you to Coffee and Kavanah. I hope that you've brewed yourself some good coffee and are waking up to a very beautiful summer morning. I hope that you're taking very good care of yourself. Just a few thoughts as we begin today. My wife and I have been walking around a lot. We take a lot of walks in the neighborhood. Yesterday, we took a day for our anniversary and went up to Santa Barbara and spent the day walking up and down State Street. It's remarkable to see how many people wear masks and how many people don't. Mask wearing has become an interesting divide in American life. My wife Nina gets very angry when she sees people without masks. She's one of those who believes deeply that the mask is a sign of your affiliation with the larger community trying to push back the virus and trying to accept a certain degree of communal responsibility, mutual responsibility, taking care of one another. But I've heard as well, and I understand the arguments on the other side. I understand that masks are uncomfortable and they don't smell very good, and they impede your ability to communicate with other people. I understand that. I get that. It's uncomfortable, no question, and I understand even deeper those who would say that the requirement to wear a mask is an infringement on their personal liberty. Their need to be themselves, their obligation to express their deeper sense of personality and self and individuality, and their embrace of liberty, a liberty which says that government doesn't tell me what to do, even if it's for my own good. I have to make those choices. I get that. I understand that. It's such an interesting conversation, though. It's the conversation between two great impulses within the American tradition. The tradition of American individualism, don't tread on me, leave me be, let me be the person I'm meant to be, and the tradition of American communitarianism. We're all in this together. We're a community. We care for each other, we protect each other, and we pool our resources and accept mutual responsibility for one another. And mask wearing becomes an emblem of that conversation. Very, very interesting. If you step back from it, don't get angry at it. They're very interesting exposition of these two impulses within the American character. It never it was never issue for me. I mean, wearing a mask, first of all, because my wife won't let me out of the house without it, and because I'm 66 years old and a cancer patient, these kinds of things affect me very deeply. I can't afford to get sick. It's very interesting to me as well because I think one of the things that prepared me for wearing a mask is that I wear a kippah. I live a religious life that is articulated in rituals carried out day to day. These rituals have become such a kind of normal part of my life that I don't think about them very, very much. We keep a kosher home. I've kept a kosher home most of my life, um, except for a few years in college when I was going crazy. I grew up in a kosher home. I keep a kosher home now. And it's never been an issue. Yeah, there are certainly things on menus that I would love to order. Trust me, even a rabbi salivates at certain things on the menu. Don't be fooled. But you get used to this lifestyle. It becomes part of the rhythm of your existence. Keeping kosher, keeping Shabbos, wearing a kippah, saying a prayer before we eat. These are things that have become sort of second nature. Ritual. Mask wearing is a ritual. Ritual is a word we use to describe a symbol that we act out. And yes, it's true that mask wearing has a tremendous pragmatic value. If Anthony Fauci tells me to do it, I'm going to do it. If he tells me that's the way to fight the pandemic, I'm going to fight the pandemic. But it's more than simply that. It's symbolic, and that's why people are objecting to it. It's symbolic on the one side of communal responsibility and symbolic on the other side of individual liberty, both of whom are deeply held values. Ritual is a symbol. And we live in a world of rituals, we human beings do. And because I live in a world of religious rituals, this ritual of wearing a mask hasn't been too very difficult for me. So I've been thinking a lot about rituals as I see people with masks. What does a ritual, what does ritual really mean? Well, let's take a moment just to consider this. On someone's birthday, we celebrate. That's a ritual. In other cultures, you celebrate other days. In Italy, for example, everybody has a saint's day. In Jewish culture, you don't celebrate birthdays. You celebrate a yard site, the anniversary of somebody's death. How do we Americans celebrate birthdays? Well, if you take a step back and look at what we do, we bake a cake or we buy a cake, we put candles in the cake, we sing a ritual song, happy birthday to you, and then the person blows out the candles. All ritual symbols to describe and articulate our feelings in celebrating the birthday of somebody that we care for. The beginning of a ball game. The flag is raised, we stand up, unless we kneel, and we sing a ritual song, sing an anthem that affiliates us with a collective national enterprise. It's an odd thing when you think about it, why that's the way a ball game begins, and yet that's the way ball games begin. In fact, ball games are that himself a ritual. I mean, if you've ever been to a sporting event, there's all sorts of rituals. And if you imagine for a moment what it would be like to be a person visiting from another culture, visiting from another planet, there'd be all these things you'd want to know what the heck was going on. Certainly, there's a contest going on, a ball game on the floor of the basketball court or on the baseball diamond or on the football field. But then there's all this other stuff. Who are these scantily clad young women waving themselves and dancing to us, dancing for us? What's that about, right? That's part of the ritual. It's a symbol that says something about who and what we deem valuable and who we are. In Jewish tradition, we embrace ritual because ritual is a way of changing the way people behave in the world. The rabbinic tradition that governs our Judaism is a way of changing human beings. The rabbinic tradition embraced a sort of voice in the Torah that understood that human beings don't change all of a sudden. They don't change apocalyptically all of a sudden. God brings the people Israel out of Egypt, crosses the Red Sea, gives them freedom, and 3 days later they're fetching about the food and the water. People don't change that quickly, even with amazing special effects. One-shot revolutions don't change people, at least permanently. What happens instead is a slow journey across the desert. That's the Torah's voice. And the slow, steady rhythm of ritual behavior has the capacity to change people. Ritual is pedagogy. That is, it's a curriculum. It's a way of teaching a certain way of living. When I was a kid, my Bubba used to have a whole series of little tzedakah boxes. They called them pushkas in Yiddish. And before Shabbos, we would all put pennies into the pushkas. She was supporting charities in Israel, charities around the world. She was supporting yeshivas. She was supporting orphanages. When I was a little older, I said, Bubby, I don't think these charities exist anymore. But the idea of putting a penny into the pushka, putting a nickel into the pushka before Friday night, says to a child growing up that tzedakah, that generosity, that taking responsibility for the world, that giving up a little bit of your personal wealth, your personal resources to take care of the world is what's expected of you. You don't teach generosity all at once. You teach it a penny at a time every Friday night of a child's upbringing. That's one of the things that ritual does. It's pedagogy. Another thing that ritual does is practice. There's a beautiful custom of putting a mezuzah on the front door of your home, or any door of your home, but especially on the front door of the home. The mezuzah is a small box, and inside is a parchment. And in that parchment are written the words of the Shema. And so you put that on the door, and the custom is that when you enter the house, you stop a moment and you kiss the mezuzah. Now, I never paid any attention to this until I became a father. And what would happen, of course, is I'd be working all day. I was a school principal at the time, and I'd be spending all day working with kids and with grown-ups, and I was exhausted by the end of the day. But what never occurred to me is my poor wife, who was home with two infants at the time, with a 2-year-old and a baby, she was equally exhausted, probably much more exhausted. And what I needed to remember was to leave my exhaustion outside and be ready to listen to her, be ready to hear her pain, her difficulty, her frustrations, her struggle, be ready to give her support and love. So I would stop at the mezuzah and I would give it a kiss. It was my way of stopping And I remember that the first word of the mezuzah is Shema, which means listen. In my sense, it was listen, idiot. Listen to her. Listen to what is said and listen to what isn't said. Listen to what the walls are telling you. Listen to the people in this home, because right underneath the word Shema is the word Ve'ahavta, which means love. Listen and love. These are the two modes of making a family. Put your frustration, your work, your business outside and listen as you walk into this home. That's how you show love. And I would suggest that going out is the same way. It's also custom when you leave the house. Listen to the people you meet today. Pirkei Avot teaches us that the wise one is one who learns from everyone he meets, everyone she meets. So every person in the world has been sent to teach us something if we have the capacity to listen. As we enter the home and as we leave the home, listening is what's so terribly important. So what is the mezuzah? It's pedagogy and it's practice. If I listen to the word of the mezuzah, Shema, listen, Ve'ahavta, love, then I'm going to become that kind of person. A third function of ritual is a moral language. I'll tell you a very funny story. The first time we got a computer, it was a big family purchase, remember? There's a little study nook in our den, and we put the computer in the study nook. We did this, first of all, because it was the only place that we could find, and we did it so all the kids could have access to the computer, and we did it also because the study nook is public, and I wanted to be able to keep an eye on what my kids were getting into. And that computer became, was hooked up to the internet right away. And my son Yonah, who was a brilliant kid and a very sensitive and a wonderful kid, still is, of course. Um, Yonah was about 13 years old. And I walked by one day and he had something on the screen which you would not expect to find from a rabbi's kid on the screen. Unfortunately, the internet is full of this stuff, of course, and a 13-year-old kid, he was adept enough to find it. So what happens? I stopped. He tries to hide it, but just like, I should confess, the Playboy magazine that I had hidden in my bedroom, just like that, the picture on the screen, it was very hard to hide because the more you tried to suppress it, the more things kept popping up on his screen. I said, no, don't do that. You don't have to hide. First of all, then I know that you're becoming a healthy adolescent. That's interesting. And, but we need to talk. We need to talk. And I said to the kid, who's that? And he said, that's Miss February. And I said, yes, but that's not the question I ask you. Who is she? Who are her parents? Who are her sisters and brothers? What are her dreams? What do you suppose her soul, her neshama, is like? I said, Yonah, I've taught you every day of your life that a human being bears a neshama, a gift from God. That beautiful young woman, and she's very beautiful, has a neshama, which is even more beautiful, I hope. I want you to get to know her neshama. Is she nice? I asked him. He said, Abba, she's hot. I said, probably. But is she nice? That's the question. And we started to talk about that. I said, the problem is that our culture throws in front of men all of these sexualized images of women, and we become accustomed to seeing women as two-dimensional images. We become accustomed to that. The girl in the magazine, the way we look at the girl in the magazine is the way we're going to look at a woman on the street. I said, what would you think if someone looked at your sister or your mother that way? He said, it would make me very upset because they wouldn't know her. I said, it's precisely right. But it's attractive to us because we men are filled with a drug called testosterone, and it attracts us to that. So you know what that is, Yonah? That's treif. I said, treif. Treif is food. I said, yes, but treif is more than food. Treif is something that I'm attracted to, something that I desire, but I realize that my better self keeps me from doing that. After Shabbos dinner of chicken, you guys want ice cream. I tell you, you can't. You just had fleischiks. It's not right. It's treif. Your attraction to that picture is perfectly natural given your body, but your soul, your neshama, lifts you above it. You're better than that. You're better than that. He said, I'm sorry, Abba. I said, no, I don't want you to be sorry. I want you to be careful. I want you to be careful because I want you to grow up to see every woman as a person who bears a beautiful neshama from God. That was the discussion. The language of treif, the language of kosher and treif, gives me a language to describe a moral confrontation with a 13-year-old. It's a language that we can apply in these cases as well. Because we live ritualized lives, or lives filled with ritual, we understand that rituals teach us something. We understand that ritual is practice. It has to be done all the time. And we understand that ritual provides us a moral language. And I would suggest in this case as well, don't scream at people who aren't wearing masks. You may want to, but don't. It's not appropriate. What you should do is simply explain. This is a way of teaching an idea that we are responsible for each other. This is a way of practicing that idea on a daily basis so that it becomes part of the rhythm of our lives, that it becomes second nature. It becomes second nature. It becomes almost invisible to us. And this is a way of establishing a moral language. Because just as I have to wear a mask out of consideration for you and your health needs, just as I have to wear a mask out of consideration for the clerk in the store, or the waiter at the restaurant, or the teller in the bank, just as I have to wear a mask in order to protect the other person's health, I have to ask myself, what else do I need to do? What else do I need to do to be sensitive to the needs of the other and quell the deeper voice which is constantly screaming my own desires and my own needs? And for those who see the mask as an infringement on individual liberty, I certainly understand that. But I'm going to ask you quite plaintively, without politics involved, no politics, that just this once, you give up that individual liberty out of a respect for the communal responsibility we bear for each other. Just this once. And maybe if you do it just this once, you're going to realize that this is a moral language which applies in so many other aspects of our American lives, that it really does make us a better society. It was the great vision of the founders of this republic that we would be a city on a hill, a shining city on a hill to the whole world. That was a reference taken from what, at first from the New Testament, from the Christian Bible. And before that, it was taken, I think, from the prophets of the Old Testament, prophets of the Hebrew Bible, the prophets who saw the shining city on the hill as a beacon to all human beings of their mutual responsibilities. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it says something to us and to our children about who we aspire to be. I think it reflects the best of us. I wish you a very, very good day. Please put on your mask when you go outside.